let's get into some of the figures you've covered, and I want to start off by talking about the Jheri Curl Gang.
Yeah.
The Jheri Curl Gang is this gang out of Washington Heights.
Yep.
It was a set of the Martinez brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were a very vicious gang.
Absolutely vicious.
I want to start off by the leader, Rafi.
Yep.
How did he get into the drug game?
So, Rafi, the background on these guys is very scarce, and I tried to dig deep. Long time ago, when I was browsing the internet, I don't know what I was looking for, but I came across this article about with 5 dudes with Jheri curls, and I said, "Is this an R&B group?" And it was an old article. Must have been from 2006 or something. I first saw it 2010 or something like that, and I read it. I was fascinated by it. I said, these guys that just 5 brothers. These guys all made their crew were Jheri curls, and I said, someone needs to do a story on them. And so I would talk to my guys. Like I said, some of my guys were involved and they did time, and they were around that area. Some are from the Heights, some are from Harlem, some are from the Bronx. I said, "Do you ever hear of these Jheri curls guys?" Like, nah, I never heard of them. It's like, yeah. I asked another guy, "You ever hear of the Jheri curls, Martinez brothers?" Nah, I never heard of them. And so I think the reason for that is because their reign was very short. Their rise was tremendous, and their fall was just as immense, right? They were only on the top for about 2 years. Mm-hmm. And
what years were they active?
It was 89 to 91.
Okay.
I think that's when they were officially a gang, right?
I got you.
They officially had
like they were
enforcers and managers.
when they were relevant to talk about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they were on West 157th Street, and they kind of took over a building, which was fairly common. You hear about that a lot in some stories I have coming up. I'm actually speaking about that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So at one point, Rafi gets shot in the head by a man named Chino.
Yep.
Do you know why that happened?
As far as I can surmise, it's just a matter of jealousy. It was just a matter of he wanted what he had. He was getting bigger than him, and he wanted him out of the picture. Like I said, there's these. You kind of the more stories I do, the better I get at context clues and assuming things. Although I will never specifically assume something on the camera, but mentally I'll think he probably shot him because of this or because of that. Everything is pointing to that. So
they weren't business partners.
They were partners.
So he was selling a large amount, and this guy's like, wait a minute.
That's all I could get. That's like a guess. I mean, it's I tried to get the police intel information, but since they're alive, they won't share it, which is typically the norm.
Okay.
Privacy concerns, especially if they have appeals or whatever coming up. So I couldn't get any law enforcement intel on them. So I only had about 3 or 4 sources. And then I had the newspaper articles. And so I don't know the full story behind that one.
Well, that's definitely a relevant moment in Rafi's life. Because after this, he says he's not trusting anybody anymore.
Yeah.
He brought his uncle and brothers.
Yep.
With fake passports that costed him around $3,000. How did you know the price of these fake passports in the 80s?
It's what the source that I was using stated that, but I thought to myself, is that an accurate number?
And that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
In the 80s, $3,000 is probably like about $30,000 now. I mean, I have no idea, but I would assume or something.
It's not 30, but it's a lot. It's maybe 12, 15, something like that.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of money because they were, in essence, this was before Photoshop and 3D printers, and this was you had to literally go get you had to duplicate the passport texture, you had to duplicate the laminate, right? So it was an involved process, and I think what they also did was oftentimes they used the name of someone who had passed away, someone who wasn't alive, so they had to get that information. So it was pretty involved, and I guess in a sense it would be worth it because they can make a run for DR if the heat came down on them, right?
Yeah, I just want to stress to the public just how violent a group this was. So I'm gonna list off some of the things they've done.
Sure.
So they allegedly shot, stabbed, and lit a man on fire while his hands were tied behind his back.
Yeah.
You know, they tied up and beat some workers for a week because they accused them of stealing, and then after a week they ended up finding out it wasn't even them.
No harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
They shot a guy in the leg for stealing.
Yep.
A worker was selling crack on the side. They took him to the Bronx, shot him in the head, threw him out of a moving car.
Yep.
You know, so after Rafi got shot in the head, he had a limp after that.
Yep.
His girlfriend makes fun of his limp. He shoots her in the knee.
In the kneecap, yeah.
So these guys were just terrorizing the neighborhood. They were shooting guns in the air. How did the neighborhood look at these people? Like,
you know, what's funny is that after I posted the video, I got a lot of comments of people who said that they're from the area, and several people said I lived at 157. I lived in that building with them.
Okay.
Most of them had the same sentiment. They said they didn't bother anyone. Especially if you were Dominican, you know, they kind of looked after. They would help women up the steps with groceries, right? They came across as gentlemen. In essence, I've heard that a lot about drug organizations. So it seems to me as if they were vicious towards anyone that they needed to be, right? And they just were not people you wanted to cross. If you crossed them, you were in trouble. But if you were just an everyday citizen, it seemed that they weren't bad towards other like regular people. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. There was a civilian by the name of Jose Reyes.
Yep.
He was 66 years old.
Yep.
He confronted the Jheri Curl about their drug organization, and soon after that, they were raided.
Yep.
And soon after they were raided, Jose Reyes was killed in broad daylight.
He was, right on Broadway.
So, talk to me about that, what that did to the neighborhood of just a regular 66-year-old guy, you know.
Social worker,
a normal civilian.
Absolutely. And he, back to what I said earlier, they didn't bother citizens. This would be the one, this would be the civilian that crossed them, right?
I got you.
So, in their eyes, he had confronted them, and I actually got a little bit more information on this after I posted the video from someone in the know. I'll put it that way.
Exclusive.
So that person said Jose confronted them, and I want to say it was 2 days later that their stash apartment in the building was raided. Obviously, they think to themselves it was Jose. Right, it was, but it actually turns out it was just a bad timing. It wasn't Jose. It was from the ongoing investigation they had going on, and he had nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. So after that, they said, "All right, not only is he confronting our workers, initially they first put a death threat in his apartment. From what I remember, somebody snuck in." Wrote something on his wall in the apartment, said, "Well, you know, you're dead if you keep talking." And he didn't take heed. He wasn't deterred, and this is a very tragic incident. You know, this guy was just trying to do good for his building, his community, right? And he's walking down Broadway, and Roberto Gonzalez, his name is the one who is accused of it, and from what I hear, is most people confirmed it was him. Shoots him several times in the back. I think once in the back of his head, and that's it. He's dead. And afterwards, that probably did better for the Jheri Curls because everyone was terrified now. No one wanted to say anything. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted to talk to police. This was around the time when they called Fort Washington Fort Yo No Sé, right? Yeah. Because nobody was speaking. Nobody saw anything. They don't know anything. But
they also called it Miami on the Hudson.
Miami on the Hudson. Yeah. because the cocaine coming in there was outrageous.
Yeah.